like that.
Now we can't hear you.
You can't hear me. You can't
Now
hear me. You hear me now? All right.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
How you like the new intro?
I love it. LIP, baby. I like that. That came in with a nice beat and then disappear. Well, the intro was dope. I like that beat and everything. Remind me of that, like some of that old school hip hop.
There you go. I picked it on purpose because it did have that vibe, and I'm at a certain age. They say this about you true, and this is what I'm about to say right now is true in research, is that age 32 is the most likely age where you stop listening to new music and you start recycling all of the music that you grew up with. So your teens, your 20s, 32 is the age. And so, you know,
where can I find that?
Where can I find that? I'll send it to you. And because when I read it, I was like, no, I'm youngish. I still listen to you. And you know what? It hit me that people be talking about musicians, and I'd be like, are they famous?
Like, yeah. Who are they?
Who is that? Anyways, it is Freedom Friday, and you are still not free, but hopefully you will be freer after an hour with us in this discussion that we are about to have. What are we talking about this week? We are talking about this insane question about, is America a racist country? Why are we talking about this? We're talking about it because we had a senator of the United States who gave the response to the president's State of the Union. Senator Tim Scott was the one who delivered the response for the Republican side. And in his response, he said, "Let me assure you, America is not a racist country."
My God.
At all. And he started trending on Twitter because of that. Uncle Tim is what he started trending as. Now, what a lot of people don't mention or not paying attention to is the very next day, the vice president of the United States said the same thing, Kamala Harris, and then the president of the United States was asked the same question. He said, "Well, this is gonna be a tough one. Well, do I think America's a rough country or a racist country? Well, see, no, I don't think the people are racist. Yeah, but some stuff is racist, but it's not the racists. Yeah. The racists aren't the race, but untongue tie yourself, people. We're gonna have an honest discussion this morning. So let's start. Ray, I see you chomping at the bit. You want to jump in?
Yeah.
So what say you?
The craziest thing about everything that we're talking about right now is that each of them that said that America is not racist, then in the next sentence gave examples of how America is racist, right? And so I'm sitting and I'm just like, all right, this is just how politicians talk. But I think that it was important because it opened up the roads for this dialogue that we're going to have today. Because, man, I don't know in America that's not racist. I just don't. So that's why.
I'm going to ask you in a second, what's your proof? Or what's your evidence? Because if we want to say America's racist, you can't just say it without evidence. You guys are scientific people. You know, one of you is going through fancy book learning right now. The other one of you already had your fancy book learning already. So at some point you had to develop your arguments with evidence. Now sometimes it's so stupid to be able to say is there a moon or is there not a moon? What's your proof? Well, I've seen the moon,
every day.
Every day. So Sharif, before we get to the what's your evidence, what say you just in general about us even having to talk about this and answer the question right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe they were describing the multiple Americas that exists. Black America is not racist. I 100% agree. Black America ain't racist. We're aggrieved, we're angry, but we're not racist. So I mean, if that's what they meant, all that mealy mouth, mushy, waffling that they did, fantastic. But if not, then we got some serious issues about how they view the lived experiences of millions of people and how they explain the history and the legacy of this country.
Yeah, and what do you? So,
and let me just say, I'm so glad that Ray is here to defend his people, Like I've been wanting to text him all week, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wait.
Something
Well,
you
yeah.
can't really defend.
No, you must, bro. Please, by all means, please defend. You are a Black Republican, which is in some ways like, being a Black leprechaun, but so like it's culturally a mismatch, right? Unless you're Black Irish. Let me take this back. Let me not insult my Black Irish people. And Irish people, I do remember that your ancestors were the first of Europe to come from Africa. So
I was just about to say,
let me okay. So maybe it's not like maybe it still is like being a Black leprechaun. Anyways, bruh, as a Republican watching this, and as a Black man, watching a Black man, first of all, when they put Tim Scott out there to deliver this message, I believe it was Mitch McConnell the next day who said that's the future of the Republican Party. Said that like he was basically, I think, responding to a question around Trump, and he was kind of like, that's looking backwards. What you see with Tim Scott is the future of the Republican Party. And I guess that means that the Republican Party is going to have one Black senator out of all of them for the rest of their history. Maybe that's the future. Anyways, defend the Republican view on race and racism.
So first and foremost, man, Tim Scott is not the future of the Republican Party. The future of the Republican Party is Liz Cheney and those that are willing to stand up against Trump and Trumpism and racism. I think when everything was for 4 years, you had a quiet Tim Scott. Very rarely did he come out and say anything against the propaganda of the Trumpites. So I just really can't respect a man that just doesn't like stand up for his people. And so I did some internal research on Tim Scott, and it's not so when I look at politicians, I was really upset with Donald Trump being elected because I didn't think that he had enough education in order to be the president. And so when I look at someone in the highest office in the land, most powerful person in the world, I want them to be like super educated. I want to be able to like learn from them when they talk. I want to be able to like Google things that are true. And I feel like George W. Bush and Trump didn't put us in a good light during their presidency. I think W has come forth in terms of like the things that he knows now and the level of self-reflection that he has now. I'm looking at him more as an intellectual now than I did when he was a president, but I just don't get smart from like Trump, right? And so I don't get that, and I feel those same vibes from Tim Scott. Tim Scott only has a bachelor's degree in poli-sci, and it took him 8 years in order to get this bachelor's degree. So, his level of wherewithal, his ability to argue certain things or whatever, like he's not going to be the person that's going to put forth a grandiose effort in terms of like getting police reform. Like I would look at that bill and I'm like, well, what the hell is he talking about? Right? Because on the one breath, you're like, oh, well, racism doesn't exist in America. But then I just Googled you and you got YouTube videos with you being harassed by the police. So I just don't understand how racism doesn't exist unless it directly impacts you.
I mean, I think that's an interesting to point out that he himself has told his story of unfair treatment with the police, right? So there's something really spooky and eerie, almost like the movie Get Out, about these dudes who are not allowed to say that racist things are racist as a way to have a position within that party or on that side of the fence. When we talk about Black conservatives, and you're sick of me now, listeners and audience, of me saying the same thing over and over again. There's a difference between Black conservatives, which I feel like I fit more in that camp, versus the conservatives who happen to be Black, which I do not mess with that camp at all. So as a Black conservative, I am personally, as a Black libertarian, which is partially a Black conservative, not a full-on Black conservative, but as a Black conservative, I am consciously trying to preserve the things in history and in life that have served us well and that are replicable, that we can use over and over again. What are the best thoughts? What is the best scholarship? What are the best practices? What are the things that strengthen families and communities That to me is conservatism 101. Look for the things that have worked throughout all of human history. Math, science, whatever. These things, they have worked, preserve them, right? But conservatives who happen to be Black as a requirement of their admission to probationary white status have to discount everything that Black people say about an unfair society. That's their job. That's the only job they have. They only have one job, is to be trotted out to say, no, the plantation ain't that bad. No, Jim Crow is not that bad. No, Reconstruction's not that bad. No, the Georgia voter law that seeks to disenfranchise Black people ain't that bad. Mm-hmm. No, the police who over-police us and have mountains and mountains and mountains of abuse claims, no, they're not that bad. That is a conservative who happens to be Black, and the sole function that they serve is to make white people feel good by spouting off the things that white people get to say. See, Candace Owens said it. See, Coleman Hughes said it. See, Glenn Lowry said it. See, Ian Rose said it. There are no problems in America. There are no problems in America except for the fact that you have no daddies. If you had daddies, then police wouldn't kick your ass more than they kick other people's asses. If you had daddies, maybe your teachers would learn how to teach reading. But since you have no daddies, the whole system, health, government, the courts, the taxing system, the GI Bill, redlining, all that happened because you don't have daddies.
You on one today.
I mean, what the hell? Help me out. Am I crazy? Am I losing my mind here?
Listen, I mean, for them to paint that things aren't that bad is, first, I think people should re-listen to Malcolm with the parable of the house Negro. I think that's really important, in this context, as far as, when people are saying it's not that bad and they're up in the house eating leftovers, and they ain't sitting at the table, eating leftovers, and yet, conspiring against, like, hey, you know what, the ones out there, they plotting to, to run away. They plotting to do something. They plotting to come in here. And so then they get on TV, like Tim, like, yo, we sick, boss. We sick.
Oh, yes.
White supremacy is sick. America is sick. And Tim is up there like, we sick, boss. Let me go talk to him. Let me go tell him. Let me go tell him it's all right. It's actually good. And then and I didn't even realize that he was muted. But for Ray, for you to point out, and I think that's really important, that he was muted for the past 4 years, self-muted, but now all of a sudden he got stuff to say. Like, why you got stuff to say now? Where you been? Where have you been? Right. And so I think that's just a really important piece. I think on top of that, we need a new letter from a Birmingham jail. We need another variation of that speaks to, because a lot of that was speaking to, white pastors and allies. We need one that speaks to the Tim Scotts and the other folks. I don't know a lot of folks that you'd name, Stewart, but
that's good. That's good. That's good for your mental health that you don't know all the people that I'm talking about. And just so you know, they're spawning new ones. They're spawning 22-year-olds and 23-year-olds. Amala Ekapanobi, who goes by the Twitter handle Half Black Conservative, who is now on PragerU's channel, saying the same thing that we all just said, but she says it faster and whatever. We're turning out Black versions of Tommy Lauren now, and you probably don't even know who she is, bro.
I know Diamond and Silk. Every conservative I learned from y'all when y'all blasted on this show where 8 Black kids and y'all blasted. So I'm like, how'd y'all find them? So
this is what's so funny. Diamond and Silk became celebrities on their side. You mentioned Tim Scott with his lower level of education in comparison relative to others in the field. When they put up Clarence Thomas as the candidate for the Supreme Court, he was 45, had a backlog of cases he hadn't decided, had an unremarkable career at the time, and somehow he got a lifelong appointment to the highest court in the land. If you don't think that these folks on the other side support affirmative action, there's something wrong with you. Candace Owens dropped out of college, yet she's arguing with people with 4 times her academic background. This Ekapanoe girl that I just said, same thing, 22 years old, not really furthering her education, let's just say. So they find our village idiots and then they weaponize them, right? There's a program somewhere where they snatch you off the street at midnight and you disappear for a few days and you come back talking all this other nonsense or whatnot. And it's because there's some sort of program somewhere. It's like midnight lobotomies are happening.
Yeah, but
y'all just watch out.
But do they have to give some of these jokers lobotomies? Like, were they thinking one way and then get snatched? Or were they already like, yo, you know what? That's the one, right? Like, there's something about them that shows, like, you know what? I'm kind of anti-black too. Like,
yeah. But I think y'all getting it wrong, man. Like, it's a hustle, right? And so they may believe it, but then also there's an audience for it in terms of like, all right, well, if I can get this platform, so now I can get these white folks behind me. And so not only am I saying what I may truly feel, but I'm now receiving all of these endorsements and I'm getting these speaking engagements and these opportunities to make money or whatever off of things that I believe. So like, it's more, the problem is the fact that they have this platform to be able to do it.
Yeah. They get a platform specifically because, wow, are you going to say that anti-black stuff? Oh my God, let's get you a team.
Yes.
Let's get you a team. Well, listen, so that we're not talking insincerely or without specifics or without data, I just want to like put up a couple of just a couple of pieces to make a short argument. First of all, institutional racism in the healthcare system, as told to us by the American Academy of Family Physicians, says that they recognize that racism in the system that is a system that categorizes people based on race, color, ethnicity, and culture to, this is the important part, to differentially allocate societal goods and resources in a way that unfairly disadvantages some, while without merit rewards others. That's very important. Let's not talk about racism as if it's just all personal racism between individual people. That's not what we're talking about. Institutional racism, first, number one, categorizes people by race so that they can, and then that second part is very important, decide how societal goods and resources are going to be unfairly distributed amongst people based on that racial thing. Now, if you were to ask the question, is the United States of America a racist country? You have to not just ask that question. You have to ask the question, does America categorize people by race and then apply benefits to the society to some differently than they do to others based on that category? That's the question you're answering. So let me just drop a couple of things here. So the infamous New York City's stop and frisk policy was known to create a system of racial profiling. It was a blank check for police officers to stop any individual, and it was widely used to racially profile and just shake down everybody. So on my Twitter feed right now, I have a couple of so-called conservatives or libertarians or liberal, classical liberal people who are saying that critical race theory is an assault on individualism. Well, if that is an assault on individualism, what is it when the police department can simply stop me for walking down the street as an individual because I look like I'm a member of a group that they have profiled for race? I'm a free ass American. I'm a free citizen. So if you are all about individual rights and individualism, why aren't you out here screaming about policies that blanketly cover entire groups of people, whether they are innocent or guilty? It's because you're phony and you're lying. What about the top Nixon advisor?
Chris, before you go on, they're actually using critical race theory. They're using interest conversion right now because like those things aren't in their best interest. And so
they use everything. This is what white supremacy is, a criminally insane enterprise. It will use anything against you. It will use anything. It will take your own books and use them to create advantage for itself. Top Nixon advisor reveals the racist reason that he started the war on drugs. Very clearly, the person who was right there in the room with Nixon when they were starting the war on drugs said it was an actual attempt to actually attack Black people. And they were going to lift up Black capitalists in a small group and throw them some crumbs to make them feel important. And at the same time, they were going to attack the Black masses by, number one, allowing drugs to flood their communities, and then number two, punishing them more harshly for it. How's that for your individualism in a non-racist country? Americans' forgotten history of how the U.S. government segregated American housing Wow, interesting. So the actual government created a housing program in 1933 because there was a housing shortage. And to do so, they used race to afford some benefits that they didn't afford to others. And they built whole ass neighborhoods and parts of cities that had all the best land with the best resources and afforded that to white people on the basis of whiteness. And it was written right into the contracts that you couldn't sell to non-white people. And at the same time, they put black people in the worst parts of the city, on the worst parts of the land, with the most toxins, the most kind of unprofitable pieces of land and plots of land. And guess what? Over many generations, it created benefit in terms of intergenerational wealth for one group over another group. Interesting. That feels a little racist. I don't know. Is America racist? Social Security did the same thing. I'm not going to go deep into it, but Social Security, when it was established, excluded entire classes of people, the entire classes of occupations that were black occupations and occupations of color from Social Security. Again, a wealth benefit that didn't hit us, only went to another group of people. I could keep going, but I just want to say, stop being stupid, people. The GI Bill did the exact same thing. Gave some people access to a wealth building, generational wealth building benefit, and some didn't, on the basis of race. On the basis of race. The Fair Sentencing Act, when we just talked about the drugs, right? It started out at like 500 to 1 that it was more punishable to hold some crack than it was powder cocaine. Why? Well, it's because black people were more likely to do crack because it was cheaper, and white people were more likely to do powder cocaine. For my thinking people out there, for thinking Americans, for those of you that aren't stupid, I just want to tell you the difference between powder cocaine and crack cocaine. The difference is baking soda and water. So one is a derivative, the other is the real thing. So to have powder cocaine be 500 times less punishable then if you were to add baking soda and water, makes baking soda and water like one of the most evil things in the planet Earth.
It was punishment for diluting their drug. You're like, are you diluting this? All right, here's a stiffer sentence.
I mean, crazy. Bro, how many things do we have to count like this? Somebody help me out here, because I feel like I just went on a rant. But how many of these things do we have to? How do we have to lift up and say these are all systemic? These are all systemic things
by their own researchers. Go ahead, Ray.
But all right. So here's the thing, right? So we had our president, who I voted for, by the way, that came on and was like, America's not racist. But in all fairness, he's also the architect of the crime bill, right? And so we saw what that crime bill did. Chris, you just brought up the disparities between crack cocaine and uncut cocaine, and then when we just look at just like being labeled as super predators, like how the hell is that not right? I don't understand it. And I think the conversation that we should be having is not how is America racist? How is America racist? How is it not? That's the conversation that we should be having. Like, they should be on a podcast right now. Tim Scott, the president, they should be on a podcast right now talking about how America is not racist, because I would love to hear it. Like, I don't have any evidence whatsoever that tells me that America is not racist.
Let me ask you an honest question, Ray. Can you think of any major system in the United States that doesn't have racism as a main feature? Name one major American system. Is it the library system, or is it?
Well, shit, they trying to take our books from us. They're trying to take us out of our books.
The libraries that they shut down in our hoods, those libraries.
I love my library system. I just want to say, but I do want to say they have very different content depending on which one you're in. Depending on what part of town you're in, you might have very different content in your library. But I mean, my question stands: if you really had to be in favor of saying America's not racist, can you name one?
That's easy. Schools. I mean, schools is the perfect example that
they're not racist.
No racism. Yeah,
there's no racism. Trolling us now, bro. Now you trolling.
You see Ray's face.
Now you trolling.
What?
You're trolling.
Which institution? Man.
How many presidents have we had that are of color?
One.
How many governors are of color? How many governors are black?
Is it one?
It's very small. I can't even actually remember that we
should be
have one. Actually, it's one that we have.
It should be two. It should be two. But America's.
I think at our highest point we had 3. I want to say.
But right now it should be 2. Yeah. America's racist.
Right.
Georgia and Florida.
Right. Yeah. How many governors how many senators do we have that are black?
3.
Yeah. Wow. Out of all those senators, we have 3 black senators.
Out of 100. Because you think about it, right? 14%. Black Americans make up 14% of the country's population.
Yeah.
So rightfully, if it's out of 100, then we should have 14 black senators.
How many, so I don't want to keep going down the line, but when I ask about presidents and governors and senators and the Supreme Court, it obviously doesn't look like the United States of America. If America was just like non-racist, free for all, and opportunity was afforded equally across the board, all of these main bodies of government that I just said would look very different.
Mm-hmm.
How many judges did black judges did Trump appoint?
Oh, come on. 0.
Was it really 0? I would have thought
it was really 0.
A Clarence or somebody.
They couldn't even find a Clarence that could pass the test enough, right? Wow. They had out black dudes out here wearing Confederate flag jumpsuits and they weren't good enough. Like they were like, nah, you still seem risky. They were like, you still seem a little suspect. It's like, bro, I'm wearing a Confederate flag on my jumpsuit. What do you mean it's risky? Yeah, I don't know. You still got an afro though. It's weird for me. No, we just have to go with a white dude.
You're gonna see the rise of the Kentucky AG because he's got Mitch behind him. And so you may see
so.
Rise. Yeah, I think so.
Same one that declined to prosecute the murderer of Breonna Taylor.
Yeah, he might be up next.
Here's what's interesting about this question. That
maybe him and Tim Scott. Maybe that's the ticket.
Watch it happen. Tim Scott and Candace Owens. Watch that happen. And I'll know that we have hit peak stupidity. When we ask the question, ask the question, is America racist or not? Let's not just answer it by ourselves. America tells us that they think that racism is a major problem in the country, whether they're saying we're a racist country or not. This is from the Pew Research Center here. A growing share of the public views racism as a big problem. And this has happened over the last few years because for several years, it was not as much of a problem. But look at this, in this graph, this goes back to 95. Coming up to 2017, during the Obama era of the 9, 10, whatever, 11. During Obama, most people were feeling like, oh no, we cool, we arrived. We arrived. We got kind of a black president. Yeah, we're good, bro. And then in 2015, it was like, not so much. Yes, I'm dumb. So listen, 58% in 2017, the majority of Americans, 58%. But if you add the, it's like 86, 87% that think it's either somewhat a problem or a very big problem. Racism is in the United States. That's the majority of Americans. So America's telling you that.
There's a huge disconnect in terms of how politicians view things and just like how regular Americans view things, right? And so while they're saying that, especially with my parties, I'm going to talk specifically about the Republican Party.
Hey, my party. That sounds so crazy. Can you say that one more time? My party.
I know it sounds so crazy. Like when I talk about my party, I'm talking about a turntable and some Hennessy. When he says my party, he's talking about the Republican Party. Go ahead, Ray.
It's disillusion, bro. Because you'll have the majority of the country that wants some kind of gun controls, right? You have the majority of the country that is for anything, right? Like what are we doing with the structures and all this sort of stuff? What bill is he proposing? And for the infrastructure bill, right? So you'll have. The American Families Act, right? So you'll have the majority of Americans that will be for that, right? Now here it is. You have 50 senators that are relegated to express the interests of the American people. You'll have 68% of Americans, which include both Democrats and Republicans, right, that want something or that are for something, right? And then you'll have the 50% of the Senate that is like hellified against it, even though the constituents are like, hey, we want this, right? So there's a disconnect between the people that we are electing to go to Congress and represent our interests, and then the interests that they represent. So what I'm trying to understand is what the hell happens to these politicians, like once they are elected, to the point to where they go and they do the opposite of what we want them to do.
Yeah, I mean, do they fear accountability? Like, what's going to happen? Like, how do you actually hold them accountable, right? Like, if they were like, "Hey, you know what? I'm here for another 5-6 years,
Yes.
and you're going to forget. You're going to forget. And if you got a short memory, I'm gonna pass out some turkeys for you, right? and really help you out and forget, like, you know, what actually happened, right? And so, you know, like, you know, we have these watchdogs, but how many people are like, listen, you know, I think sometimes the watchdogs are so, you know, professorial and policy wonks that they can't, like, they should be like the town crier and say, yo, don't forget, here's where they said F you, here's where they said F you, here's where they said F you, and make it plain, like remind people, because people are distracted, right? And the closer it gets, the more the distractions show up. And so I think a big part of that is like, how do we make sure that we have an apparatus for that accountability? Because that's the thing, is set up where, like, how do you hold them accountable the next day after the vote? You know, like, you can do the protest, you can shut things down and stuff like that. But then people are like, all right, I got to get back to work. You know what I mean? Like, so that a lack of accountability for just saying F you to the, you know, we represent you, but we don't care what you actually say, what you actually want, and what your voice actually is describing.
I will say that sticking with the question, is America racist? No president, no Democrat has won white people since after Johnson and the civil rights legislation. So that ended white people. That ended there being a real contest. So the Republican Party became the white people's party at that point because of the disdain for the civil rights, and they knew that was going to happen. So the only way that you have a Carter, a Bill Clinton, an Obama, and a Biden is because white people aren't going to elect any of those fools, right? That's all people of color, black folks doing that. Why? You have to ask yourself why. Why did that happen? Was there a racism at all involved in that decision to decide we're going to put all our eggs in one basket? Why is the party of that group still the party right now championing Republicans right now? And Ray, I'm sorry, bro, I just got to say it. I know Republicans right now are more sympathetic to pedophiles than they are to black people.
They are,
right. They're the pedo party right now. They are harboring so many pedophiles right now, but they got one black senator. Well, I mean, it's like Democrats only have two, so I'm not going to let Democrats off the hook either, because I hate everybody. Let's just say with this, I hate everybody. Anyways,
that's why you're a libertarian, I guess.
It is why I'm a libertarian, because I just want to be free. I want everybody to leave my ass alone. Let me just buy some land. Listen, I just got to put this up here just because Sharif was trolling us like, oh, well, education is the one system where there's no bias. I know he doesn't believe that. But listen, right here. Educator bias is associated with racial disparities in student achievement and discipline. Point blank, period. People, that's your system. That's the system that's educating your children
as early as 3 and 4 years old, right? Like, you can be a 3-year-old and experience bias, right? Like, so, I was laughing because Ray, you put that picture up, like, when do I become a threat? Yeah. And they may not look at that 3-year-old as a threat, but they're going to punish you as if you are one, So, like, it's like crazy. Yeah. For this to even be debatable with all this, the scientific knowledge, the lived experience, the research. And when you look for racism, what you're looking for are patterns. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for, is there a pattern, right, that I can see across the lane, and then can I look at it and predict it based on race? Every single institution that you came up with, you can say with an emphatic yes, there is a pattern. There's a pattern of marginalization. There's a pattern of privilege, and the government participates in it. If you are a senator, you are part of that government that participates in it. And you can either be a silent, compliant, complicit person, or you can be rabidly out there leading it, saying like, yo, like 45, right? And so that's the continuum. of so many folks who are in that space, right? And so, you know, the shout out to the co-laborers, the co-conspirators who happen to be white and understand that, yes, this is a racist society. It has a racist history, and that history was never really interrupted. It may have been covered, but it went from a above ground creek to an underground creek, but it's still flooding our basements. Like, we still having trouble with that same flow, that same current that we've been having for 400 years.
Okay, I just want to put this up here. Bro, even soap dispensers are racist.
Oh,
even the damn soap dispensers. The reason, like, there are black people who have been frustrated forever, like sticking their hands under these things sometimes, and the soap just won't come out, or the water won't come out. AI, artificial intelligence, has been programmed in a way that it is racist too. If you can't get soap in your own country,
bruh. I mean, and it's funny, but it's serious too, because that same science also impacts, like, monitors for heart, right? Facial recognition, like a whole lot of a whole lot, like the soap joint is, it's just like, this is wild. Like, you can't, and we talk about like the Band-Aids or the makeup, but there's some real life situations, and we know, like, it is deadlier to be a person with melanin. Like that's what this country is. You're more likely to die slow or fast because of this.
Yeah, that facial recognition. There's a guy that, I saw. I don't know if it was a meme. It might have been an article, but there was a guy that kind of looked really like another guy, but he wasn't the other guy, and like he's locked up in jail right now based off of facial recognition. So.
And I saw a picture of him and the picture that it was attempting to match him with. Yeah. And it's something like a human. If you were to look at him, you can see a slight difference in them enough to know it's not the same person. Mm-hmm. But this is the point that I'm making. If you have people who have white normalized the world, so everything's white normed, you're going to do entire medical tests just on white people. And you're not going to pay attention until 15 years later that whatever thing that you came up with actually is killing another group of people because you just didn't pay attention. You didn't think enough to do. So this kind of this white denialism, this white like denial of racism and denial of what happens when you make white the default for a society. Mm-hmm. Just everything from getting soap to getting good medical care, medical treatment, to being given pain relievers when you are deeply in pain, but they don't know, they don't associate pain with being black. Oh, yeah. They don't, to how you learn to read, to how long your sentence is going to be when you go to
court.
Giving birth,
especially birth. That's huge.
Yeah. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. And when I think about it, some of this, we're talking about like big picture, but again, back to these patterns, right? Like some of that AI you were mentioning, they were talking about like even Polaroid pictures. They privileged that what their focus was to make sure that white people look normal on it. And, so if you had melanin and you're like, yo, that Polaroid, like, why do black folks look crazy in those old school Kodak? It wasn't a Kodak moment for a lot of black folks. It was the exact opposite, right? Because they only, as you said, they have blinders and just like white is the default, right? And it brings me to that article that somebody posted yesterday. I think from Fordham, Petrelli posted that Robert wrote, right? Then it's like, oh, but if I teach children about this, then that makes white people feel bad, right? Like if we talk about this is poor manners to talk about this in polite company, because we shouldn't really acknowledge that. We should ignore all of that and just say hunky dory.
Did you say honky dory or hunky dory?
Hunky dory. I did say like, oh, everything's hunky dory.
I think the expression is hunky dory. I just want to be clear.
Don't do that. Don't pigeonhole him like that.
I just want to be clear about the language that we're using on this show.
I don't use that word that hunky dory. So if I messed it up, my bad. Yeah,
you're from the north, bro. You're from the north.
That pun DCO article is a trigger, and I'm probably going to respond to it this week.
Good for you. You should. Why is it a trigger?
It's a trigger, bro. You'll see in my response.
Well, give us a little tidbit. You don't
Yo,
just
nah.
you brought an appetizer plate, but it's empty. Like you can't do that. Like here's the appetizer.
I mean, like he's written something before that was a trigger for me, and I'm just like, like what is happening here, right? And like we had a really good conversation about it, like after I had to like write something. So I'm gonna address it. I'll address it in with literature. That's all.
It's hard for me because so Robert and I actually had a major kind of like disagreement a few years ago when they were writing from that camp. They were writing a lot of stuff around how these social justice warriors are just ruining education advocacy. And, they're going to ruin the bipartisan coalition if they keep talking about police injustice and, racism and all this stuff. And I was just like, really, is that really the path that you want to take? If you're trying to convince a major population that your policies are good for them, but you can't even, they're so thin-skinned they can't even listen to 5 seconds of something they disagree with. So I pushed back then of like, these aren't other issues. Like to say these aren't education issues. No, maybe you get to compartmentalize your life that way, white man, but we don't get to do that. and then we were able to like, kind of find a bridge somewhere. I made a lot of effort to say like, let's talk about it, whatever. And we found some common ground. But here they are again now with this cultural warrior shit. So the same thing that he wrote about social justice warriors, I could write about cultural warriors. Why won't they shut up about this stereotype around absent Black fathers and the family being the biggest mix or whatnot, being the biggest problem in the mix? I think that they feel like they're losing their power and their position nationally, and they can't help themselves, right? When you have white people in stores flipping out because you're making them wear a mask and they are acting like it is the worst atrocity in history ever. They are comparing it to the Holocaust. They're literally comparing it to, you guys are Nazis. I'm not wearing a mask. And all I can see in that is, oh, this is what happens when empire starts crumbling and white supremacy starts falling. You put them in a corner and they're going to be the worst minority ever. Out of all minorities, if we were to stack all the best to the worst minorities, no, we need to pull them aside and give them a webinar on being a minority. We need to like say, listen, let us take, because y'all doing this all wrong. You going into minority status with like,
they're gonna show you how to be minorities. Is what's gonna happen. The amount of power that they're
worst minority ever.
The amount of power that they're gonna.
I mean, because at the end of the day, like that's what it is, right? Like even if the diminished numbers, like where's the power lie, right? Like where's like it doesn't matter. We see this in South Africa. We see it in other places that's colonized. The numbers themselves don't matter. It really is like, are they going to will power be redistributed? Will voices of the masses be lifted up and elevated and listened to? Will it inform decision making? Will it inform policy? And like without a fight, it's just not going to happen. Power concedes nothing. We know that phrase well because we see it every single day. We see it at every election and the aftermath of an election. So,
and they are literally conceding nothing right now. They don't want to be told. Like, listen, if we're so not racist, how is it that you have a white guy who storms the Capitol and then wants organic food? He wants organic food once he's in jail. Do you have another one? He got it.
Hell yeah, he got it.
Did he in jail?
Did he get it?
In jail. In a jail.
Can a murderer, if a murderer wants Burger King, does he get it?
Yeah.
Does he get it? One of the girls, and I shouldn't say girls, one of the grown-ass women who stormed the Capitol, she stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop and attempted to sell it to Russia. And the judge let her out.
That's some Three Stooges joint. Like, I'm gonna just sell this online. Like,
no, that's that world's dumbest criminal thing.
But I want America to stop gaslighting my ass, because if you had a Black person, if Raheem stormed the Capitol and stole Mitch McConnell's laptop and tried to sell it to Mozambique to be used against us, would the judge say, I'm going to release you into the custody of your mom? This woman was 21 years old. She got released to the custody of her mom.
They would have locked the mom up too, right? Like, something like, you see what happened? I forget his name, the boy with the sneakers on the plane. You see what happened to the whole country after that, right? Like, everybody wash their feet now before they go to the airport, just because of that. So you know the deal already. It's yeah, I mean, I think it's such a silly conversation for them to say it's not racist. I think, when folks want to placate a group of people, they're going to be really cautious about what they're saying, and I think this is why we talked about this before, Chris, like you can't get to truth and reconciliation if you can't deal with the truth. There's no reconciliation without the truth. It goes back to that, when Malcolm talks about the knife in the back, he said they won't even acknowledge that it's there. And that's exactly what this whole conversation is about. Like, we will not recognize, even though we still twist the knife that's in your back, from, as often as we think we can get away with, and we will not acknowledge it's there. And then we'll gaslight you if you say, I do think there's something, protruding out my back, and it's painful and it's hurting and I feel like I'm dying. It's all in your mind. You just need to work harder.
Still no body cam for Andrew Brown Jr. You go to court, and then the court stifles any opportunities for the American people to see the body cam footage. Right? I don't really need to see the body cam footage because I saw the independent autopsy, so I already know what happened, right? And based off of history and based off of just our knowledge of what these cops do to black folks,
lived experience, right?
And we already know what happened, so we don't necessarily need to see the body cam. Body cam is more for like a conviction purposes or whatever. But what I do like from what I'm seeing the FBI and the feds go in and take over some of these civil rights cases. This is
an old article, right? Like, when did they start talking about this?
This was like 10 years ago that they started talking about it. But this is the point that I want to make. There has been a coordinated long-term effort uncovered by the United States intelligence community that white supremacist groups are well organized, that they are actively training with people in law enforcement to train more race soldiers to join police departments and the military. And we have seen the outcome of that long-term effort, that strategy that they have been doing. So when you are black and you get pulled over in the middle of the night by someone, you don't know whether you're dealing with a police officer who's officer friendly, or if you are talking to officer infiltrator who's got all the white Iron Cross tattoos on his forearm, and he's supposed to get points by kicking your ass or killing you tonight, right? So that's the difference in relationship between black people and the law enforcement. Now, if there was a coordinated effort by Louis Farrakhan to develop Nation of Islam black people to join police departments, to kick white people's asses and kill them, how differently would we look at this story? If all of a sudden black men on police departments were shooting white men and beating their asses all across the country for some weird kind of increase, like how did that happen? It started happening more. I don't know how it happened. And someone were to say the FBI figured out that it's Louis Farrakhan who is developing Nation of Islam race soldiers to join police departments. How different would this story be?
Bro, Louis Farrakhan would have a RICO charge.
Bro, but the whole thing is laughable when it's like when the FBI is talking about racism, like the J. Edgar Hoover FBI is talking about, hey, y'all, this is, I'm like, wait a minute, ain't this the same like stuff that not only the FBI was doing, but weren't county sheriffs and cops and state troopers doing all this already with your support? Like who was stopping civil rights workers and murdering them in backwoods? Who was allowing lynch mobs to drag you from the from the jail cell or from your bedroom, right? Like, so all, the fact that now one of them is like, hey, look at these guys, they hella racist. Oaktown, they hella racist. Like, like they're worse than we are. Like, that's what that is. Like, yo, they even worse, right? Like, it's absolutely laughable, man, if it wasn't so murderous.
If it wasn't so murderous. I mean, you watched Donald Trump's government try to make the case that BLM and Antifa were a bigger threat than what all of the intelligence community was telling them. The intelligence community was telling them, we don't have anything called Black identity extremists. That's some shit you made up. We don't have any like this counter movement. So you trying to say like there's, very fine people on both sides. Trump was literally the president of the United States. Trump was literally sitting there Googling shit at night, like, Black identity extremists, blah, blah, blah. Let's find something, blah, blah, and trying to put it into law. Meanwhile, the government was already telling him, no, we have a domestic white supremacy problem. We have camps in Idaho and in other places where they are training race soldiers to go into companies. And now you have the video evidence. Just follow any of these video feeds that show racist incidents. Now, listen, this is a portion of the conversation because we done gave a hard time to the people that want to gaslight us about race. Especially the people who like Ray's friends. Like Ray's people are like I don't even know why we let Ray in on the show. I don't know, like Ray even has membership anymore because his people are gaslighting us like they are like damn Chevron, and we sitting up here just taking it. But Sharif El-Mekki, you and I have done this show for a while now, and we have taken to task our good bougie people on the left. Are people who, in some cases, are race hustlers, are misusing CRT for the wrong reasons. I want to give you a case in point real quick. The person who is giving white conservatives their most fuel is Ibram Kendi, and he's the one out here writing these books around, kind of like CRT updated. So here he is. Standardized tests have become the most effective racist weapon ever devised to objectively degrade Black minds and legally exclude their bodies. So everything that I can say about Candace Owens and our kind of hustlers on Ray's side of the fence, Ray's people, and this is why I hate everybody. I can say it about the same people on the left who are commodifying CRT in a way that weaponizes it for white progressives to do kind of equally as racist things to us. Don't care about the school system. Just give them more money and some hugs. Don't care about teachers and teaching and all that stuff because unions are good. It's not racism. The teachers aren't racist. The kids are just poor, and poor kids can't learn. There's a flip side of this. There's a racist left-wing side of this too. And I think we should be honest about it. What say you guys?
Yo, I saw one of his bills from one of his professional developments, and I was like, God damn, yo, you could pay a year's salary.
Business is good right now. White guilt is at an all-time high. White guilt.
Now, if it was somebody else, Ray would be the first one. Like, stop counting that man pockets. Stop counting.
He would. No, that would be Charles. No, that would be Charles.
Would be Charles. All right.
That would be Charles. Charles would be like, "Get your bag, man. Get your bag, man." And he'd be saying it about anybody. He'd be saying it about like a black Hitler. Well, I mean, he got his bag, man. Let him get his bag. And we'd be like, "Bruh, get your bag. There's some shit you shouldn't sell. There's some shit you shouldn't sell." And stupidity is one of them.
Not all money is good.
Not all money is good.
I mean, what I would say with about Kendi, like, yes, while they're using that, I mean, like, come on, let's be honest. They're going to use anything that they can. So I don't think there's a overt, opportunity kind of thing for them to say, oh, now we're going to latch on and use this as and with some counter messages and all of that. I think they're going to latch on to any single thing that they can. I mean, Kendi, I definitely think some of, I think it has a lot of great work, out there. I do question his understanding of what's happening in the schools. I can guarantee you that he would not put his own child or one of his loved ones in the schools that we're talking about. He wouldn't do it, right? Like I see plenty of professors that got a whole lot of fire for different things that people are saying can improve schools. And then you find out that their child is in the most expensive private school. And so it's very easy and safe to talk about stuff that you don't know, that you don't live, that you've ran away from, and we don't harbor any ill feelings about that, except, you have to be careful about how you say for the people who are in it, the families that are suffering from it for generations, and say, no, don't take any medicine. You can just trust. Because how do you write a book about that you're stamped from the beginning, how deep racism is, and then say, but in schools it's different, and don't hold them accountable. Don't even offer. I think the offering that I think I read, I haven't read all the pieces, but one of the strategies that I do think I read correctly was don't test, don't see if they're able to perform. Just ask them what they want to know about, and that is your standard of whether they've learned. And I never hear nothing like that. Like, what, that is not in the Black tradition. Of just like,
in the Black tradition.
Forget about outcomes, forget about results, forget about progress, forget about accomplishment, and just what do you want to learn about 10-year-old? Right? Don't worry about the reading level. I don't care about the reading level,
because you may not be able to read what you want to know about, but just tell us. Last week,
tell us. All right, you're advanced.
You're advanced. Jesse Hagopian, a Blackish teacher, and Denisha Merriweather, because he talks a lot about Black issues, but he wasn't raised by a Black family. So I think he has blind spots in application of his Black stuff. But he's a Black teacher in Seattle who went to the Harvard of Minnesota, Macalester College, where there were only 4% Black people. But now he runs Black Lives Matter in schools. Him and a few others. So him, Denisha Merriweather, and I can't remember who was the third person, but they did a Kendi panel on standardized testing is racist and has a history of racism and whatnot. I think we're going too light on the left with their racism around. This is the same thing around. This is the left-wing version of Black people don't experience pain the same way that others people's. So you don't need to test them the same way. It's a version of anti-intellectualism for Black people, like just trust the teachers. It's not the system, and it's not the teachers. They're not racist. It's actually it's the larger systems. Like if the kids weren't poor, and if the kids weren't facing external stuff, they'd do better in school. It's a version of left-wing racism that is equal to, in my mind, it's absolutely equal to that right-wing version of things. It's letting the system off the hook. It's trying to rescue the system at all stops. And it's trying to say everybody else is racist, but not the teachers. Right.
Well, I'm writing about
something magical happens once all the smog that Beverly Tatum talks about, Dr. Tatum talks about, that's in the air that everyone's breathing. Something magical, rainbows and unicorns happen when you say, "Now I teach," and it's particularly you become absolved if you teach Black and brown kids. Then you are like, that's when the real magic happens, and you are no longer have any racial tendencies. Despite the fact, on the next time they'll have a panel and say, "Yeah, it's real racist in schools. They don't have access to rigorous courses. They don't have access to the prestigious public schools. They got higher suspension, expulsion, disciplinary referrals, all of that. But yet the people are not. All of that is because of another system. It ain't this system that we're part of. This one. It's that system. And so they'll have you chasing systems.
This is my point too,
all of y'all mofos.
But Sharif, that is the point that I'm making about like Kendi and Jesse Hagopian and Denisha Merriweather and any of these other groups of like left-wing diamond and silks that they will trot out here. That's exactly what this is. They will find the white right wing will find a diamond and silk, and the white left wing will find a diamond and silk. And just because you agree more with the left side on something, it might make you not see it. It'll give you a cataract, a blind spot. But the left wing and the right wing are the same bird. That's how they fly. That's how the bird flies. The bird flies this way. So they're both going to find their Negroes to get them off. If you put them up on charges of racism, they're both going to find their people to help get them off. Kendi is doing that, and Nicole Hannah-Jones and others are doing that. By
trying to get us a cease and desist.
Listen, I'm not saying it like I think these people are evil. I'm saying they're giving a free ticket to a system by ignoring parts of it that we should not ignore. They're ignoring the racism in the classroom and in the system, and they're giving speeches to the people in the classroom that helps them feel better about themselves, the same way that the diamond and silks help right-wing people feel better about themselves. I don't think any of us should be going to make them feel better about ourselves. First of all, talk to your own people first. Stop giving these speeches to teachers' unions and to white conservative groups talking about Black people to them, and start talking to your own people. I want to see how it flies when you give this speech. No, all teachers is good. I want to see how that flies in low-income communities, specifically just with people who don't believe that. Final words, you guys. Let's roll into final thoughts on this. Is America racist? Is the sky blue? Blah blah. Let me pretend like we have an honest question on the table. Is America racist, guys?
Well, listen, I mean, the part that you talked about earlier was about just this conservatism and like what it means is to conserve something. So in many ways, if we're talking about white, conservatism and what that means, and when you're talking about like racism, the practices and the policies, if they were all racist and there was no like line of demarcation when they automatically became anti-racist, then that means what are you trying to preserve and what are you trying to conserve? And we know some of it is dog whistle language, some of it is just outright candor, for showing like where the holes in their heart and their constricted thinking is. And so so that's one. Like it's almost a silly conversation, as you said. It's like the sky is blue, but yet people want to dance around it. It's like back in the day, dancing on air. People like moving Soul Train line with no rhythm around this question about like what's happening. So I
that's
would say
American Bandstand, bro.
Oh, is that what that is? Yeah, I knew it was. And so when you talk about like this continuum of racism, right? Like you're talking about like the fox and the wolf. Like before the election, we talked about that a lot. When Malcolm was like, "Hey, which one do you want to eat your kids? The fox or the wolf? Like which one?" And so a lot of folks are like, "Hey, I got a better shot against that one," right? But then other folks like, "Hey, I'd rather you speak plainly and tell me that you have contempt for me instead of pretending you're my friend and have low expectations for my children," right? Because I think that's where the left, this diamond and silk stuff on the left is such low expectations and refusing to hold people accountable for outcomes for Black and brown children. I would say we need more folks like, what was that? The Citizen Commission to investigate the FBI. Shout out to, it's been 50 years now for the folks who exposed COINTELPRO in writing, right? When they broke into that office, that FBI office, the FBI who's diming on the cops, the same FBI that had the COINTELPRO, and locked up in their office in Media, Pennsylvania. It's been 50 years, March 71, when they broke into that and exposed that. And so we need that kind of understanding of what is the history. And anytime someone says, "Oh, it's not racist," show me where it changed. Show me when the orbit stopped and went counterclockwise. That's what I want to see. Tell me when it happened. And because I was asleep, I had one of those Rip Van Winkle's Johns, and I missed it.
I just want to say that I think that's like one of the most profound questions right there. Is like, if America is not a racist country, when did it stop? Give me a date.
Where's the blip? Where's the blip on the timeline? And don't point to Obama. Like, actually show me when things fundamentally.
They will point
changed.
to Obama. That's what they say. They say that McConnell has said that because of Obama being elected, that tells you all you needed to know. So, Ray, what do you say? Your final word on all this?
So my final word on all of this, man, I'll bring it back to education for Charles, because he's not here. Is that when we come into the classroom, we come into the classroom with our lived experience. So if you have white teachers that are in the inner city teaching Black kids, then those white teachers approach the work through their lived experience. Many of them have not had experience in the inner city with dealing with our kids. The only thing they know is how they were raised, how they were brought up, how they were parented, how their parents parented them. And that's all that they know. And so a lot of them look at parent engagement or our kids through their lens, through the lens of the white middle class. And if they're looking at us through those lenses, we'll never measure up to be what it is they perceive should be like this pinnacle of what is good. And so my message to these folks is you got to broaden your lens. And that's why critical race theory is super important to education. And for those people that are trying to take it out of the schools, we don't care if your kids feel bad about what your ancestors did. They did that shit. Like it is what it is. Like embrace it. Let's talk about it, and then let's move past it. But you can't move past it unless you acknowledge it, right? You're trying to take it out of schools. You're trying to jade how history is being taught. Then that's basically saying that you're not acknowledging what was done. Those are my
thoughts. Well, I'll be interested to see what you have to say about Pondicio's article. I feel like, oftentimes Pondicio is just trolling. He's just trolling Black people and people of color and the left. And he's doing it from a position of just kind of stoic white male, missing the point. I don't have to see your point or whatnot. He has an article here says, I believe anti-racism is misguided. Can I still teach Black children? Right. This is just a major trolling article. That's all this is. This is just like, it's just trolling. And basically it is just saying all that stuff that you guys care about and that you're saying as Black people, that is important to you about how you're being treated in this country and about how the structures and the systems are working against you. I don't care about all that. That's not my problem. That's not what I'm facing. That's not what I care about. It could happen and I don't believe it. I don't believe you. I literally don't believe you when you say that you're being treated differently by your government. But, oh, by the way, can I teach your kids? Can I be your kid's teacher? My response to this is hell no, you can't. So I just want to be very clear. Pondicio, we've had some good days. We've had some bad days. I just want to tell you this article is bullshit. And I just want to tell you very clearly, you can't teach my Black kids, right? You can't teach my kids anything. Right. As a matter of fact, I want a law that allows me to keep them as far away from your ass and your classroom and anybody like you as possible. That's what I want the law of the land to be. I want the law of the land. This is why, see, people confuse me. They get confused about the reason I'm for school choice is not so that I can choose a situation where we all go to school together. I appreciate school choice because it allows me to keep my kids away from your backwards hick-ass children who are going to be bringing things into the schools that is going to ruin their upbringing and their childhood. This is why I support school choice. We don't have to agree on CRT. We don't have to agree on racism. We don't have to agree on the founding of the so-called founding fathers. I don't have any founding fathers. I have framers of the Constitution who framed me out of the Constitution. I want to keep my kids away from you. I want to keep my kids away from you as a teacher and as an influence in their life if you are going to discount the years and the history of pain that still show up in the structures that govern our lives today.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, bro.
No, I was going to say, no, I was really having my own thought bubble. I was like, yeah, our founding fathers is Toussaint, Proctor, Nat Turner, the brothers who led the Stono Rebellion, like that. Those are our founding fathers.
Let me tell you, the founding fathers are Bootsy Collins, George Clinton, James Brown, Little Richard, and Prince. That's the founding fathers of everything.
Did you leave out Lionel? Where's your pillow?
I don't have my Lionel Richie, hat on today. And I want to say all this to say, like, listen, this is no ill will to Robert. Robert, like, listen, I know that you would cringe on everything that I am saying right now. I will again repeat, we have had some good days and we have had some bad days. We agree on some things and we disagree on some things. This is something that we won't agree on because it involves my children. If your question of your trolling ass bullshit article is, can I disagree with you on the things that matter most to your existence as a human being in this country and still be qualified to teach your children? If that is the question in your trolling ass article, the answer is no. No, you can't. And I hope no other Black student is being taught by anyone like you. And, if I really wanted to get shady about it, I would say in the school that you loved so much, where a lot of this civics education was going down in, the Black students of the school you worked in that teaches all this civics bullshit from a bullshit perspective. The Black students in that school wrote letters saying that you all were mistreating them and that your rules were backwards and that they were racially oppressive and anti-Black as a system in the school you started. That's not even to admit the fact that I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not gonna do it.
But it goes
I'm
to
not
that.
gonna do it. I'm gonna leave it alone.
I mean, what did Baldwin say? Something about like, if your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist, right? And so, to me, to say the key wording, color blindness is blind. It's like a total misunderstanding what's happening as far as like when you say color blindness, what you're saying is default white. That's white. That's what color blindness means. It means the default of whiteness. And what they're saying is, we want to be able to teach default whiteness and you all leave us alone about it. And matter of fact, embrace and accept it. And we're never going to accept that shit. Bottom line. I don't even cuss.
Sharif don't even cuss and see where this went. Where this went.
I'm fasting and everything. You know what I mean?
Whose show is Sunday, and why don't we part 2 this? Yo, this energy is amazing.
Yo, so we should and so what Ray is asking is, what is our 8 Black Hands show coming up? So as we wrap today, this would be a good thing to tell people. So Sharif, what's our show on Sunday is with who? With 8 Black Hands.
So we're super excited. This Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern, Mama Akua and Fred Hampton Jr., chairman of the Black Panther Party Cubs, Mama Akua, the partner wife of Fred Hampton, chairman, murdered by the Chicago PPD. And so when the FBI says, hey, this stuff just happened, and they were coordinating that with the cops back in the day. So we're excited to have Fred Hampton Jr. and his mother, Mama Akua, on the show on Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Is America a racist country? So we're going to have Fred Hampton Jr. and his mother on our Sunday show this Sunday.
We can ask them that question too, right? So there could be a kind of a part 2, right?
Yeah. What I think is so hilarious about it is their entire existence is an answer to the question. Mm-hmm. The fact that Fred Hampton Jr. exists today, that he's alive, is a mystery in some ways. But we've covered Fred Hampton on this Freedom Friday before. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And anybody listening or watching, go and read the story. Go and read all of what happened, all the background information to Fred Hampton Sr., and then come back to us with some stupid ass question about if America is racist or not. So anyways, in the end, I'm assuming, Sharif, your answer is yes. We're a racist country.
Yes,
America is a racist country.
Some people are gleefully racist. They embrace
happy
it
as hell. Mm-hmm. Where do you think all this, make America great? The hat says, I love me some racism. That's what that translates as. You look at that red hat, that's what it says. It says, I love me some racism. That's what that hat means. And Ray was wearing one. No, you never wore one. Did you wear, bro? Anyways, Ray, your final answer. What's your final answer?
Absolutely, 100%.
Hell yeah. My final answer is I don't think we're racist, actually, as a nation. I don't, whatever. Yes. America, if evidence and data matter, then there is no other conclusion you can come to except for America is a racist country. That's just the bottom line. So for all of our listeners and our watchers, you come on this Freedom Friday show every week. I'm loving it. Our numbers are going up, and I appreciate that. If you could please like and share this particular video and this show, and then share it with others and get them to come to these great conversations we're having on Fridays. Today, to me, felt like a really great thing to talk about because it's timely. It's timely. It's in the news right now. Yeah. So anyways,
have a message. You got Nakima's show at 1 p.m. She's having a juror from the Derek Chauvin trial as her guest.
Oh, wow. So if you go to citizen.education, you'll find on there, it's all of our broadcasts and our shows. Nakima Levy-Armstrong is one of the activists in the Twin Cities who you've seen probably on a lot of things. She's even been with Oprah now. I'm loving my sister Nakima. And she's going to be having a show today with one of the jurors from the Derek Chauvin trial. So I would say go and see that. I think I'm being told that the link is, so the link has just been dropped into the comments. So watch her show today. Come back and see 8 Black Hands on Sunday night for this great show that we just mentioned to you all. And don't get gaslighted by dumb people this week. Don't let people ask you questions that they should know the answer to. Is America racist? I don't know. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your ancestors are too smart for that nonsense. Your ancestors would be rolling over in their grave right now. Consult with your ancestors before you answer any question. Before you answer any question these fools are asking you, because the devil will ask you dumb questions. And listen, you play dumb games, you win dumb prizes. And that's what this show has been about today. There's a lot of people out here winning dumb prizes because they playing dumb games. Love y'all as always. May the peace of the Lord be with you this week.